I told myself I was only staying late because the order list was behind. That's what I said when the shop's clock hit 7, then 7:30, and the only sound left was the soft hum of the ceiling fan struggling to move the thick summer air. The others had gone home hours ago. Just me, a half-dismantled espresso machine, and the faint smell of solder and burnt coffee grounds. And her, sitting quietly by the counter, a book in her lap she hadn't turned a page of in 20 minutes. Her name was Mara. She owned the small repair shop next door, but somehow, she always found her way here after closing. She said it was because my coffee was the only one in town that didn't taste like regret. I didn't know if she was joking. She had that kind of voice. Calm, self-contained, the kind that could make the truth sound like a riddle. I wiped my hands on a rag, pretending not to notice she was watching me. But I could feel it, the kind of attention that isn't loud, but present. Like she was cataloging the way I moved, or maybe trying to figure out why I hadn't said anything yet. Long day? She asked finally. Her tone was light, but it carried something under it, something careful. Yeah, I said, tightening the last bolt just to keep my hands busy. You? She smiled faintly. Depends who's asking. You, or the man who looks like he's been fighting with that machine since dawn. I laughed, but it came out too soft. She always did that, disarm me without trying. I think it's winning, I admitted. She closed her book, but didn't get up. The quiet between us wasn't uncomfortable, just unfinished. Like a sentence that didn't know how to end. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, throwing long, uneven shadows across the shop floor. She reached over the counter to return her cup, fingers brushing mine for a second too long. Accidental. Maybe. Maybe not. I didn't move. Neither did she. The fan clicked once, then again, an old rhythm breaking through the stillness. You could have gone home, she said softly. I could have, I replied. Didn't feel like it. Her eyes lingered on me for a heartbeat, unreadable. Then she nodded, slow, deliberate. Some things are worth staying for, she said, and stood to leave. I don't know why that line hit harder than it should have. Maybe because she said it like it meant something else entirely. Like she was talking about the machine, but also not at all. When the bell above the door rang behind her, the air felt heavier. I caught myself staring at the space she'd been standing in, realizing I hadn't breathed properly since she walked in. I went back to the counter, picked up her cup, a faint lipstick mark on the rim. It wasn't the kind of thing a person should notice, but I did. And I hated that I did. That night, I couldn't stop replaying the way she looked at me before leaving. Not flirtation, not pity, just recognition. The kind of look that makes you wonder what someone sees in you that you haven't yet. She didn't say goodbye. She never does. And somehow, that makes it harder to let the moment go. I don't know what she meant when she said, some things are worth staying for. But I stayed that night, long after the lights went out, and I've been trying to understand that silence ever since. It was raining the next afternoon, the kind that starts gentle but soaks everything anyway. The shop smelled of damp wood and soldered metal, and I'd just finished fixing a toaster that someone should have thrown away years ago when I saw her again. Mara stepped in, shaking her umbrella, water dripping from her hair onto her shoulders. She wore a gray sweater this time, sleeves rolled halfway, and her expression carried that same practiced calm. Except today, something in it wavered. Power's out next door, she said. Half my tools died mid-repair. Thought I'd ask if I could borrow your socket for a bit. I nodded, already pulling an extension cord from under the counter. Of course. Her fingers brushed mine when she took it. Cool, damp. For a moment, neither of us moved. The rain outside filled the pause between us, steady, constant. She sat up at the small table near the window, the one I usually kept for customers who linger. I went back to my workbench, or at least pretended to. But my eyes kept drifting toward her. The way she leaned forward, hair falling across her face. How carefully she worked even when no one was watching. Her hands were beautiful, not in the way magazines say. They were scarred, calloused, steady. The kind of hands that had learned to build and break things with equal patience. Do you always fix what people throw away? I asked. She looked up. Only when it deserves another chance. There was a half smile in her voice, but her eyes didn't quite match it. They looked tired, not from the day, but from something older. Something she'd stopped trying to explain. Do you? she asked. Try to fix things? I shrugged. Mostly make them worse first. That earned a quiet laugh, soft and brief, but real. It changed the whole room for a second, like someone had opened a window. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I saw something flicker across her face. A shadow, almost guilt. She silenced it without answering. I should go, she said. Didn't mean to take your space. You didn't. She hesitated near the door, as if wanting to say something else, but only tightened her grip on the umbrella. You're kind, you know, she said finally. I blinked, unsure what to do with that. It wasn't flirtation, more like confession. The kind of thing people say when they're not planning to stay long enough to repeat it. Outside, the rain had slowed to a whisper. She opened the door, lights spilling in from the wet street. Before leaving, she turned slightly. Her eyes caught mine, tired but soft. Some things are worth fixing, she said. The bell chimed as she left. I stood there, fingers still resting on the empty plug socket, and I realized I'd been holding my breath again. It was close to midnight when I heard a soft knock at the back door of the shop. Only one person ever used that entrance. When I opened it, Mara stood there, hair damp again, coat unbuttoned, holding a small box wrapped in a towel. I didn't mean to come this late, she said, breath unsteady, but I think the circuit burned through. You're the only one who won't overcharge me for honesty. She tried to smile. It didn't land. Come in, I said, stepping aside. The shop felt different at night, quiet, personal. The air carried the faint scent of machine oil and rain-soaked concrete. I set the kettle to boil while she placed the box on the counter. Want some tea? I asked. She hesitated. If it's not trouble. It never is. For a while, we worked side by side, fixing the loose wire on her power tool. Our shoulders brushed once, twice, both times accidental, both times not entirely. The silence stretched, warm and uncertain. She finally broke it. You remind me of someone, she said. I looked up. Good or bad? Her lips curved, just slightly. Good. That's the problem. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. Instead, I watched the way her hands trembled when she lifted the tool, then steadied again as if catching herself mid-memory. The kettle whistled. I poured the tea, slid a cup her way. Thanks, she murmured, eyes down. Then, quieter, you shouldn't be this kind. Why not? Because kindness can turn into something people regret later. The words hung there, heavy, precise. She didn't look at me when she said them, and I didn't look away. Then her phone buzzed. A man's voice, muffled, impatient, echoed faintly from the speaker. She silenced it so quickly the sound felt like an intrusion. Sorry, she said, voice tightening. Old life. It keeps forgetting it's over. I nodded, unsure if I was allowed to ask more. The air between us shifted, not cold, but fragile. Like touching it too roughly might break something we hadn't even named yet. When she reached for the repaired tool, our fingers grazed again. She froze this time. So did I? Her eyes met mine. Tired, uncertain, but alive in a way I hadn't seen before. Neither of us moved. The rain outside hit the roof harder, like it wanted to fill the silence we couldn't. Then she stepped back, clearing her throat. Thank you, she whispered. Mara. But she was already at the door. She paused with her hand on the knob, voice barely audible. It's too hard. I should have let her go. I should have said nothing. But something in me broke first. Then let me struggle for you, I said. Her shoulders stilled. One breath, maybe two, before she left without another word. The sound of the door closing lingered longer than it should have. I didn't see her for 3 days. The shop felt different without her, too bright in the morning, too quiet at night. I told myself I liked it that way, that the air felt cleaner without her perfume lingering near the counter. It was a lie I kept repeating until it started to sound like truth. Then she came back. No warning, no pretense. Just walked in while I was restocking coffee filters, her expression unreadable, her presence immediate. You've been avoiding me, she said. I froze halfway through opening a box. I thought you were what? She tilted her head. Too old to wait for an apology? Her tone wasn't sharp. If anything, it was weary. A quiet kind of pain wrapped in poise. I wasn't avoiding you, I said. I just didn't know what to say. Then say that, she murmured, stepping closer. Say anything that isn't silence. The way she said it, not angry, not demanding, just tired, made something tighten in my chest. I leaned against the counter, trying to steady my voice. What are we doing, Mara? For a moment, she didn't answer. She just looked at me, eyes tracing something invisible between us, like she was measuring a distance she didn't believe in. I don't know, she said finally. I keep telling myself I'm not here for you, that it's coincidence, convenience, whatever word makes it sound less dangerous. Her laugh cracked, soft and broken. But then I see you, and I forget what I came for. I didn't move. Couldn't. The clock ticked too loudly behind us. Somewhere outside, a car horn bled into the evening, the world still moving while ours felt suspended. You think this is about age? I asked quietly. No, she said. It's about time. You have it. I don't. The simplicity of that truth nearly undid me. She looked down, twisting the ring on her finger, the one she never talked about but never removed. You remind me of what I missed, she said. That's not fair to you. Maybe I don't care what's fair, I whispered. That got her attention. Her gaze lifted, sharp, searching. You should, she said. Because I do. Because if I don't, I'll start thinking about what would happen if I didn't. Her hand brushed the counter, just close enough for me to see it tremble. The air between us buzzed with everything unsaid. You don't have to run from this, I said. I'm not running, she replied, voice low. I'm trying not to drown. Silence fell again, thick, pulsing, full of everything we refused to name. She turned to leave, but before she reached the door, she stopped. I used to think loneliness was quiet, she said, not looking back. Now I know it sounds like this. And then she was gone. She didn't come to the shop that week. I told myself I was fine with it. Told myself she had work, a life, reasons that had nothing to do with me. But every time the bell above the door rang, I looked up too fast, too hopeful, and hated myself for it. Then one night, after closing, my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I left something by your door. I stepped outside. The street was nearly empty, the pavement still wet from a late drizzle. A small brown envelope lay against the doorframe, her handwriting on it, precise, deliberate. Inside was a photo, faded, edges soft from years of keeping. A man stood beside her, younger, smiling in a way I'd never seen her smile. His arm around her waist, her eyes full of light. That quiet, fearless kind of love. I turned the photo over. One line written in ink that had bled slightly through the paper. He said he'd come back. He didn't. For a long time I just stood there, the night heavy around me. When she came in the next morning, she didn't look surprised that I knew. She didn't say hello either. Just, you found it. I did. She nodded, her gaze somewhere on the floor. You weren't supposed to reply. I wasn't going to, I said. But I wanted to see you. Her laugh was brittle, almost soundless. You always say things like that, quiet, certain, like you don't realize what they do to people. I didn't know how to answer, so I didn't. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The early sunlight caught the silver strands in her hair. He died 10 years ago, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Accident. I was supposed to be there that day, but I called it off. I told him I needed space. She exhaled shakily. He never made it home. I swallowed. You think about him when you're here. I see pieces, she said. You fix things the way he used to. You wait before you speak. You care without asking permission. It's disorienting. Her voice broke on the last word, and she looked away quickly, as if ashamed of the sound. I wanted to say something, anything that could ease that weight, but the words felt useless. So I just stepped closer, not touching her, just near enough that she could feel I wasn't going anywhere. She closed her eyes, breathing out slow. Don't look at me like that, she whispered, like I'm still someone who can be saved. I don't think you need saving, I said. When she opened her eyes, there was something new there, not warmth, not distance, something in between. Understanding, maybe. Resignation. I didn't leave that photo for forgiveness, she said quietly. I left it so you'd remember that I'm not a blank page. I nodded, my throat tight. I never thought you were. She smiled faintly, the kind that hurts to see because it's real. Good, she said. Then maybe you'll stop waiting for me to start over. It happened without plan or pretense, on a Wednesday evening that looked like any other. The shop was closing early. Rain tapped gently at the windows, soft as background noise. I was stacking cups when she appeared in the doorway, hair damp, eyes tired but steady. She didn't speak right away. She just stood there, as if making sure the world hadn't changed too much since the last time she walked in. "I shouldn't be here," she said finally. I didn't disagree. "And yet you are." That earned a small, rueful smile. She stepped closer, looking around the dim room like it held something she couldn't quite name. "This place makes it harder to pretend," she said. "Harder to keep things neat." "Maybe they're not supposed to be neat," I said. She exhaled, slow, tired. "You always make it sound simple." "It isn't," I replied. "But it's honest." For a while, neither of us spoke. The rain filled the gaps, steady and indifferent. She wandered toward the workbench, tracing a finger across the edge where the paint had chipped. Her hands paused near the old coffee machine I'd fixed weeks ago. "Still works," I said quietly. She looked at it for a moment, then at me. "You don't give up easily, do you? Not on the things that matter." Her gaze softened, the kind that carries both warning and wonder. She walked closer until we were a breath apart. No dramatic music, no sudden move. Just proximity, the kind that made time slow down to a heartbeat. "This isn't right," she whispered. "I know." "And yet," she trailed off, eyes lowering to my hands resting on the counter. "You make it feel." She stopped again, pressing her lips together. "Less wrong." I could have said something, a confession, a promise, but words felt too heavy. So I did nothing. Just stood there as she reached out and rested her hand on mine. It wasn't tentative. It wasn't possessive. Just quiet. Certain. The warmth of her skin, the faint tremor beneath it. It said more than anything we'd ever dared to. We stayed like that, neither pulling away. The silence between us wasn't awkward anymore. It was full, dense with everything we hadn't said, everything we didn't need to. After a long while, she spoke again, her voice softer than the rain. "You know this can't last." "I know," I said. Her thumb brushed the back of my hand. Barely there, but enough to make something in me unravel. "Then let's not make it a promise," she whispered. "Let's just let it be what it is." We stood there, two people suspended in a moment that felt both wrong and entirely true. No declarations, no grand ending. Just the quiet collapse of two lives leaning toward the same silence. When she finally stepped back, the space she left behind didn't feel empty. It felt real. It's been 6 months since the last time I saw her. The shop hasn't changed much. Still the same hum of old machines, same uneven whine from the ceiling fan that refuses to die. But the silence feels different now. Not empty, just quieter inside me. Some nights, when I'm closing up, I catch myself looking toward the door, the way she used to stand there, half in shadow, pretending she hadn't come just to see me. I used to think that kind of waiting was weakness. Now I know it's just another way of remembering. I never called her after she left. She never reached out either. But once, a week after, I found a small parcel wrapped in brown paper sitting by the door. Inside was the old photograph, the same one she'd given me before, except this time, it was folded in half. On the back she'd written 3 words in her neat, careful handwriting. "It's fixed now." I didn't know if she meant the photo, the past, or herself. Maybe all 3. What she didn't know is that, in her leaving, she fixed something in me too, something I didn't realize was broken. I stopped trying to make people stay. I started learning how to listen to the spaces between words, to the pauses that mean more than answers. Love, I learned, isn't always a beginning. Sometimes it's a lesson. Sometimes it's a mirror that shows you who you are when you stop pretending to be ready for everything. She taught me that connection doesn't have to last forever to matter. That some people come not to stay, but to return you to yourself. When I think about her now, I don't think of what could have been. I think of her hands, steady and human. Her voice when she said, "Then let me struggle for you." The way silence used to fall between us like a promise neither of us could keep. And somehow that's enough. I still fix things. Still stay late sometimes, not waiting for anyone, just enjoying the quiet. But when the lights dim and the streets go soft with rain, I find myself smiling without reason. Because for a moment in time, Two broken people found a way to make the world stand still. Maybe that's all love really is, not a forever, but a fragment that lingers long after it ends. If you've ever had someone like that, someone who changed you without meaning to, tell me in the comments. Not names, just moments. Because sometimes, the quiet stories are the ones that stay the longest.